Hi everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today I am hanging out with a couple of students and my personal assistant Delia. We are going to sit down and talk about my upcoming course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. I thought it would be fun to bring on some people who are actually in my programs who have been through the experience, as well as my assistant Delia, who is a TA in the program, so that you guys can hear a little bit more about the experience of studying astrology, firsthand. As well, I think in a broader sense, there obviously I've invited everyone on today to help me kind of promo the upcoming program, but also at a deeper level talk about how astrology has changed their lives, how studying astrology changes your life, and what the experience of studying astrology is like, and maybe some tips that you could have, whether you take my class or not, about deepening your relationship with astrology. So Delia is my personal assistant and TA for all of my programs, and fantastic astrologer. So Delia, thanks for being here. I'm going to introduce you each one at a time. So I don't know if Delia, can you say hi?
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you all.
There's Delia. And Raphael, who is a tarot reader and also an astrologer, who's been in my class, and actually can't wait to collaborate more with Raphael because he also has a YouTube channel where he does tons of sharing of cool content related to astrology and tarot as well. So Raphael, thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
And also Laura. Laura has been in my class for a while, or you just finished. You were in the program that just finished, Laura, right? Yeah, I get it mixed up sometimes. So Laura just finished in my program that started over a year ago, and is also an educator, and wears a lot of other hats too. So thank you for being here, Laura.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, cool. So I want to talk just a little bit about what the program is, and then we're going to dive into talking about studying astrology and some tips, and you can learn from all of these wonderful people and what they have to say about studying astrology. So I've been teaching the class Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic in one form or title or another for 10 years. It started in 2010 as a meetup group in Manhattan that was just I was a facilitator, but not yet. I wouldn't consider myself like a teacher yet. I was just facilitating a meetup group of people, and we studied together. And I would come in with maybe like a loose outline of things to talk about. And it was a really fun experience. But over time, what I learned was that probably 75% of the people that were coming out were pretty brand new to astrology, and there's a lot of interest and enthusiasm about astrology right now. I have a theory that it's part and parcel of yoga becoming more popular, because astrology has this really ancient relationship with yoga. And I think that so does Ayurveda and acupuncture and actually other forms of divination as well, including tarot, that the legitimization of yoga in the West sort of is like a gateway drug for other esoteric sciences and arts and practices and things like that. So I thank yoga for that. Being a studio owner, I saw over a long period of time, I was a manager of a yoga studio when I first started my career in astrology. And I saw that, that people were interested in going further into spiritual philosophy and spiritual lifestyle and spiritual insight and learning. And astrology, tarot, Kabbalah, Ayurveda, acupuncture. There's so many different sciences out there, and astrology really captured me. And these classes, these meetup groups, basically started turning into classes, because it's like, very, very quickly I realized that some structure is needed here, because most of the people coming out are total beginners, and I'd been studying for a while at that point. So anyway, that's kind of how the program evolved. And over the course of the last 10 years, it's become a staple of my career to teach a 1 year, not just like brief introduction, but a real in-depth, intensive immersion in astrology that guides people from the theoretical, historical, philosophical foundations through the technical methods and practices, all the way into actual live client experiences. So my program, it's evolved, it's changed a lot over time, but here's the outline of how the program works. It is a course that is a year long. It contains 30 lectures that are 2 to 3 hours each, sometimes even a little bit longer, with Q&A and discussion. And then in the first, say, 20 lessons, we're studying ancient classical astrology, which is ancient Greek astrology, ancient Egyptian astrology, ancient Indian astrology. They all kind of blend together in this melting pot of the Hellenistic tradition. So it's old school astrology. You're getting down to the roots, and not just the technical roots or the symbolic roots of the planets and signs and houses, but the philosophical and spiritual roots. Why were they doing what they did? Where do houses, signs, and planets come from in the first place? Why were they even a thing? How did this system get invented in the first place? And then what was its purpose spiritually? We unpack all of that in the course while also learning all of the basic delineation techniques of ancient astrology. And then by about 20 lessons or so in, we start combining live practice sessions where it's just, say, 3 hours worth of looking at charts that students bring in and unpacking them using the techniques that we've learned, or alternating into having a live client come in and students get to see me read as I would in my daily practice. And then we unpack that session after the client leaves. So that's the 30 sessions. In addition to that, you have 12 guest lecturers on the year that come in and give talks about all different kinds of topics in the field of astrology. Usually they're like complementary to what I teach, but maybe somewhat unique to what my program offers, so that people can get some exposure to the broader professional field of astrology and also some of the, let's say, more diverse topics that may not be covered in my class, including things that are out of my area of interest. Even I try to bring in things that I'm not necessarily interested in, but that I think my students might benefit from learning about. So you have 12 additional guest lecturers like that on the year. Then you have, thanks to Delia, we now have breakout sessions. So after we're finished with a unit, we typically take a break and then go on to the next unit. And now what we've added is Delia leads these breakout sessions where students have a chance to study. And I'll let her talk to you more about that in a minute. But so now there's this additional opportunity for outside class, like smaller group setting, usually breakout sessions for tutoring. There's also right now we have been using Facebook for our forum discussion. That's probably changing either this fall or maybe next spring. But we have a forum where there's regular Q&A and regular exercises that people are doing and conversations that people are having. And people are more or less engaged in that. It's not required. Every week, if you want, you can attend live for the webinars. Everything's recorded though. So I have people literally attending from all over the world, different time zones, so that people can participate and follow along at their own pace, or participate in the live webinars every week. Every week, there's also added bonus material, videos, extra audio lectures from other famous astrologers on the topics that we're studying in class, as well as suggested reading for each topic, as well as optional quizzes that you can take to kind of test yourself and integrate the material, optional conversation topics for your forum discussions, things like that. So it's a bevy of material. It's really a class that I think is good for people who are ready to go to the next level with their study of astrology. And that's why I have all of these folks with me today to talk about what it's like, and hopefully not just this class, but like what any serious commitment to astrological learning might be like, and how to prepare for it, and best study practices and things like that. So all of that being said, at the outset, I'll just give you the information. If you want to look into this more on your own, you can go to my website, nightlightastrology.com, check out the first year course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. I also have a second year course and a horary course, but I like people to take my first year course prior to taking those advanced courses, which are also each a year long. So there's 3 total years of learning that you could do through the programs that I've created. There's optional certification at the end of the first year program as well. Some people like to take that test because they like having a certificate that says I passed the test. Some people don't. It's an optional thing. There's no like grand czar of astrology that taps you on the head with a wand and says, you are now an astrologer. It's like not really a thing in astrology as much. There's some organizations that do that kind of thing, but by and large, individual practitioners are kind of in apprenticeship mode where I've had teachers that have taught me and gone through programs and gone through study and had a long time to practice and develop the knowledge in that way, and then pass it on to people. So that's how it's done. But at any rate, you can check it out, nightlightastrology.com. There's need-based tuition for people who need it, which is, if you are a single parent, if you're only employed part-time, or if you're out of work, if you're struggling due to COVID, there's a list of different conditions that you might meet that could help you out. I don't like to turn anyone away from learning astrology, so we try to keep it as open as possible. Very, very rarely have we ever turned anyone away from our programs who authentically wants to study. So we've always keep kind of a donation model for people who are struggling. Otherwise, we also have the early bird discount right now. If you pay in full prior to the start of the program, you save about $500. Then we have the payment plan, which is, you can just stretch it out over 12 monthly payments. So that's how the program works on the financial side. If you have any questions about anything as you're looking into this more for yourself, you can email us. Delia and myself can answer all the questions you have. info@nightlightastrology.com. I'm also available to you all year round to answer the questions that you have by email. Delia is too, so the two of us are constantly fielding questions from people about what they're learning and studying, and trying to be there so that it's like a professor that you like in school or something. You can knock on their door. They have office hours all the time. That's really how we try to be. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking because the really interesting people are here with me, and I want to hear from them. And I guess the first question I'm going to put out for you guys, and you guys can just, whoever wants to dive into this first, would be just in general, what led you in your life to want to study astrology more in depth, and how did you know that you were ready to go more, deeper into the subject matter in the first place? I'd love to hear you guys speak about that.
For me, I remember really vividly, staring up at the stars as a 7-year-old and listening to like Alanis Morissette and lighting incense and wondering, like wanting more, but didn't have any way. There wasn't YouTube when I was 7 to get any information for kids. And, I took that with me my whole life, and the astrology, I've studied it a little bit here and there, but it really became more of like entertainment, I would say. And then, I did the classic, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to yoga school. And then I changed my life and became a yoga instructor. And that, I think, was the gateway for me to really study the astrology, because mindfulness and yoga has always, been part of my life since I was 17. And even before that, I didn't really know it was yoga, but I was practicing yoga, stretching and breathing, and it's kind of funny that way. And studying yoga really made it clear that, there's just 1,000 rabbit holes you can go through. And I love that. That's my jam. So, studying astrology loosely and being engaged with like astrological groups like San Diego Astrological Society was really important and life-changing. And, just being in a room full of like real astrologers, kind of like it gave me this giddy, like fangirl feeling. And so I studied a little bit of modern astrology, because most astrologers that I met in person were modern astrologers. And then I stumbled on acyuta when I lived in DC, actually. And it was really funny because your yoga studio was closed at the time. And so I was forced to kind of just engage online, and I wasn't able to like come and be at your yoga studio and meet you. And then that turned into, a few years later, finally saying, this is my teacher. I can tell. I know that this is who I'm going to be able to learn from best. And so that, that's what brought me here. But it's really funny to have gone through this path, learning some modern astrology and feeling like it was mathematical, and I didn't understand it, and it was always bigger than me. And then listening to you explain Hellenistic, it just clicked. And I knew that, this was the path.
It's really interesting. It's funny how, well, one feature of your story that I think is pretty common, and we'll hear from Delia and Raphael as well, but is that it's like you get bit by a bug at some point and you get really giddy about it. And I feel like I was the fanboy too, and I still am with with teachers that I really like and respect, and people I really like reading and so forth, and just the content itself, there's a point at which you realize like, this is what I've been looking for. It's like if you're a seeker, if you're the kind of person who craves understanding and learning, and you're a spiritual person, I feel like astrology is one of those subjects where you go, wait, somehow this is addressing the whole thing. At least it's a paradigm that attempts to ask and answer really big questions about why we're here, about what's real. And it can make for just such a beautiful way of participating in life. The other thing that I think is interesting is that there's this moment when, and for me, it's happened like probably 3 times with teachers in the astrological field anyway. With yoga, it's like this too, though, where suddenly you just go like, this is the type of teacher or the type of teaching or the vibe that works for me. And when you hear that with astrology, especially, I think, I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn because I feel this way about my own teachers, but like, that's such an important sign that it's not only, it's like, I'm inspired about this subject and I'm getting giddy about it. And then if you keep knocking on the door, it's like maybe a few teachers start appearing or a few voices in the field start appearing. You really just dial into them. And I think that's a really good description of how it seems to happen for everyone, as far as I can tell. But yeah, what do you guys think, Delia and Raphael? We'd love to hear from you guys too.
Laura, it's really interesting to hear about your experience, how you were interested since a very early age. I'm quite the opposite. For me, astrology basically came out of nowhere and became a prominent feature of my life only about 1.5 years ago. And I think I was neither ever really an astrology hater nor an astrology aficionado. Like I wouldn't like read the magazines and then, read the horoscopes or keep up with any of that. But I have always been an introspective person and just trying to figure out myself, my life, and how and where I fit in the world. So during one of those searches, obviously, like I came across one of these sites that generates your birth chart and then a written report. And I knew nothing about anything. I came into astrology completely fresh, completely new. People send in emails all the time and they say, hey, is this course appropriate for beginners, for true beginners? I know nothing. And I say it absolutely 100% is, because that's how I came in. So I didn't even know, the names of all of the signs or the planets or the glyphs. I didn't know the common attributes or characteristics, even in kind of like stereotypical cliche terms that go along with all of the signs. So I didn't know what a Pisces represented or like a Sagittarius. All I knew was that when I found this site and I printed out the report, and it was several pages long, I read it, and I could just see myself in that piece of paper. Like there was something, I was like, how can this be so accurate and so true? And then also, it wasn't just a reflection. Like I didn't just find it to be a very accurate description of myself, but it actually helped me in my understanding of myself. Like it actually led to further insights and further avenues of explorations. So then after that, it happened, as Acyuta said, I got bit by the bug. I was looking at videos and just websites every single day, talking my boyfriend's ear off about it. But then also, it's very, very hard and difficult and confusing to really get a sense of astrology and the concepts if you're trying to learn it piecemeal on your own. There's so much information out there. Sometimes it's contradictory. You don't know how things fit together. And actually, astrology is a really complex system that fits together really precisely. And so I was trying to Google, like, oh, what does the ruler of one house and another house mean? And then also, when you're doing this kind of research on your own, I think it's a really common experience for most people to come in with a curiosity about themselves and their own chart, So you're looking up your own placements. So you're not really like, oh, what does the sun mean? You're like, oh, what does the sun in Gemini mean? What does Mars in the third mean? What does this mean? And you don't really get either an accurate sense of astrology or an accurate sense of yourself through that, because you really don't, even if you find, I used to make these mind maps. Virgo rising is so Virgo rising. With like the individual pieces that I would find. So I would find, for example, the meaning of Mars in Scorpio, which I have. And then I'd find Mars in the third, and then I'd find Scorpio in the third. And then I'd put all of this together in my mind map and then just try to figure out what Mars and Scorpio in the third actually meant for me. And then when you actually get into the study of astrology, you realize that, yes, like that's just one part of it. There's so much more to even take into account. But at some point I started having the feeling that I wanted to I wasn't really conscious of it, but I wanted to go deeper. I just knew I was obsessed. And I'd been looking up tons of YouTube videos. And one day Acyuta's channel popped up. And after months of me looking at stuff online, and it was really weird because I was like, oh, maybe he doesn't publish a lot because I'd never run across him before. I look into his history and he's like one of the most prolific astrologers out there on YouTube right now, publishes content all the time. And I think it was just one of those timing things. As I said, I knew nothing about astrology. His course was coming up. I told my boyfriend about it and he said, yeah, obviously do it. You haven't shut up about it for months. And for me, I didn't have to think about like the modern astrology, Hellenistic astrology. I didn't even know what that was. I just knew, and again, what Acyuta mentioned earlier about how, Laura, you mentioned this too, how you click with a teacher. And I really liked how like well-read and intellectual and well-founded, Acyuta, your ideas were. But then also, I relate to that. I like that a lot. That's how I like to process information and stuff. But I also like it to be like relatable and grounded. You know, I don't just like this high and mighty intellectualism. So basically, I just saw Acyuta's style. I liked it. And I said, that's it. I'm all in. And started the course. And I guess the rest is history.
That's, yeah. The rest, as they say, is history. Raphael, what about you?
Hi. Wow. So first of all, I just have to say, because obviously I've studied with you guys, to know that Delia came to this so sort of recently and know how bloody good she is and how much you know, like my hat off to you, because damn. So just to put that in there. But yeah, so I am a tarot reader, as you mentioned, and thank you for the introduction, by the way. I'm really, really honored and very much looking forward to collaborating with you. So with tarot, I've been studying that for a long time, and I remember my teacher saying to me, when you're studying tarot, you're going to be studying astrology, numerology, like all of these other systems. And from young, I always knew about astrology. I always knew what my sign was, and I'd listen into conversations that I heard about it. But I didn't really start to look into it until probably around my teenage years. And then when I realized, you know, that it was this big sort of complex thing, I really started to pay attention to it. And that kind of developed. I didn't take my first course of astrology until quite late. So probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. And it was great. It was really good. But again, I found there were a lot of, like you said, bits and pieces and different parts to put in. And I don't know, I mean, obviously tarot is a very intricate system, but astrology is as well. So to come to the Hellenistic astrology, it did just seem to fit for me. So yeah, I started with the modern stuff, and I really liked that you could kind of pinpoint a lot about people and about yourself, about your mind, about the way that you think, about the ways that you approach things. And I really, really enjoyed that. But I always felt like there was more to it than that. Like there was, you know, just like there could be more real world application rather than just your personality is this, or, you know, you're going to go for that if you have this placement. And I actually found a video of yours, Acyuta, when you talked about Saturn. and it absolutely blew my mind, because I was like, that's it. That's what has been happening. This is how things have happened for me. I remember my Saturn return, my first one, obviously, and the way that you spoke about it just really hit home for me. And I remember thinking, wow, this is somebody that really is able to pick this apart and give you a completely different aspect of how it can come through, how it can actually relate to you on a real world level. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, if I'm going to study, it needs to be with someone like that, that can bring it, like you said, Delia, out of here down into this moment that I'm actually experiencing on a day-to-day level. And I remember you mentioned this thing about finding a rhythm and feeling like you're off the beat. And it just really hit home. I was like, wow, that is exactly how I've experienced it. So that's how I found you. And I've been raving about you to everybody since. In terms of the course, it's been invaluable. Some of the things that I would love to highlight to people, like if you are a beginner, it's perfect for you. There's so many things about it that will give you light bulb moments. It will help you understand, like, oh, okay, that's why they talk about that, or that's what that actually means. The continuity of it, I think, is absolutely wonderful. Like, you meet every single week, like, you know, obviously when you can be there and stuff. And that really helps. It was really nice to be surrounded by other people that were totally focused on this. And I'm the question guy. So I'm always asking questions, and I'm always like,
The best questions.
Yeah, is that a stupid question? And you never feel like that. Like, there's always so much support with it. And what I really liked about it was this type of astrology really helped me understand the circle. Not just a flat sort of, this is your zodiac wheel and this is your chart and there's your planets. It was like this is how this works in terms of the year. This is how it affects you at what time, and what those implications might be on a deeper and maybe even spiritual level, which absolutely, for me, once I got there, I was like, yeah, this is definitely the way to go.
That's so cool. That's such a great endorsement. And yeah, I think one of the reasons that I mean, I'm glad to hear that people like the program, because it takes things that you've heard a million times and tells you why they are that way. Why is Mars like this? Why is Venus like that? Why are there, so many things in astrology boil down to whether you have the list, the list of keywords, the list of phrases or keywords, or whether you have the deeper understanding of what generated those keywords and that list in the first place thousands of years ago. And when you have that deeper understanding, then you have the key to not only understand where that list came from, but to add to it continually in every new experience that you have with every new person and every new chart. And it's very basic stuff, but it's also really sophisticated. So there's two types of people that I notice come to the program and really enjoy it. The one are total beginners, because like Delia came, she didn't know anything, and it was a perfect place to start because you're starting with the nuts and the bolts, and it's really amazing. But if you're someone who's studied a bunch of astrology and you have some knowledge of it, but you're frustrated because you can't understand the continuity or how one thing fits with another, this is like you're moving into an understanding of the mandala that you've been looking at, and the continuity there and the rationale underneath it starts to come out. And you get confidence because you start being able to ask and engage with all the questions that you have about how it all hangs together. So for that reason, ancient astrology is really a good place to start for people who are either total beginners or more intermediate. And the way that I teach, the details and the breaking things down like that, of course, is just, it's a combination of mimicry, of mimicking what my teachers have taught me and what great astrologers that I've been fortunate enough to learn from have taught me. But it's also, of course, you add something in of your own as a teacher, as I've realized some of the material in my own practice with clients. And the program is shaped in such a way to show people not just the theoretical, but also the practical. Here we have people live in class, and every person gets to participate in the insights and the vision of the chart and the conversation, because you're sitting there right as it's happening. So yeah, that all of that is really intentional because of the way that I learned from my teachers and what really lit me up inside. And so it's a spark, and I think we have to pass it on generation to generation and astrologer to astrologer. So another question that I have for you guys, maybe you guys want to add something in at this point too, but another question that I want to be sure to touch on is just, how has this impacted your life in terms of bringing it out and sharing it with others, or even how has it changed you personally? Not everyone who comes through my program goes out and practices for people. A lot of people do on some level, part-time here or there, maybe once a month, a couple times a month. Sometimes people go, I have students who have gone full-time. But there's a lot of ways in which astrology, that spark, that thing that you get bitten by, and you find your teacher, you start learning, but then it has a way of transforming your life and of going out to other people. So I'd also love to hear you guys speak about that a little bit, but anything else you guys have to add is fine too.
I'll mention that something that you don't expect to learn, but I think a lot of people have this experience that they come out is you go in thinking you're going to learn astrology, and you come out with kind of like a new philosophical understanding of how the world works. It ends up being like a cosmology, and it ends up giving so many answers to so many other questions. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely. I think you do. You develop as a person with it as well, because you start to really see that when you're experiencing something, everybody else is at the same time, but from their own unique perspective. And so in one way, it gives you this like, wow, we really are all in it together, but we're all experiencing our own sort of thread or string of it. I think for me, I've definitely noticed that I see and feel the transits a lot more. And I'm really able to see them like play out in the world. And it's like, wow, yeah, that's happening. Like you can see the correlation. It's amazing.
Yeah. For me, I think after year one and sharing this gift with others, it's changed the way that I look at charts and relate to people, because, for a handful of years now, I've had apps where I can pull up someone's chart and even just connect with it and say like, oh, I'm seeing this planet here, and I think that would feel a little bit like this, and have a conversation with someone about it. Because everyone, if I'm at a party or I'm finishing yoga class, someone will say like, hey, can you take a look at my chart? And sure, of course, let's play. But now it's different. It feels a little more like I want to take my time. I don't want to just blurt things out anymore, which is nice. And I'm really looking at some deeper themes, looking at where the house is, where the sun is, and what the plot of this person's life might be. And sometimes that's really heavy, and it's not just like, oh, I see that you have Mercury in Taurus. Are you kind of like this? It's given depth for sure to how I share this. But it's also Hellenistic astrology is such a deep and really what's the word I'm looking for? Holistic. I can't hear you. Yeah, it's so meaty that it's humbled me a lot in the practice, and where I might, someone might ask me a question about their chart and I might just immediately pull it up. Now I'm pausing and I'm saying, this is something that I take much more seriously, and I'm really grateful for that. It also, Hellenistic astrology was able to connect the spiritual aspect to astrology so much more for me. And I grew up, with no religion per, a court-ordered divorce. It was in the divorce that we weren't allowed to go to synagogue or church. And so I grew up very anti-religion, actually. I thought it was very divisive, and I kind of lost all connection to outside of myself and this person. And bringing back in planets that I not see, but they're there and their energy is there, I think it really brought me back into a place of wholeness, connection with something bigger than myself. And feeling really like having faith in the planets in the way that someone might have faith in their gods. I had spirituality from yoga, but this Hellenistic practice and how, archetypal and like non-dualistic and, no planet is bad, no planet is good kind of a thing. It just feels very otherworldly and helped me connect in that way too.
Nice.
Yeah.
We mentioned earlier how the course was very beginner friendly. And I respond to emails for people inquiring about the course. And sometimes I get the other, there's the other side of the coin too, where people say, I already have some knowledge of astrology. Is this course going to be too basic for me? And I always tell them no, because acyuta gets into the most likely metaphysical and philosophical roots of like the rationale behind all of these things that you've heard about. So you might know about planets, signs, aspects, etc., but you don't necessarily know them in the way that they are taught to you in this course, unless you've studied Hellenistic astrology specifically. So while it is appropriate, I think actually, acyuta, I don't know how you've done it, but you've managed to do an absolutely brilliant thing by making a course that is like accessible for beginners and for intermediate students at the same time. And I think like people at both levels can definitely get what they need out of the course. Yeah.
The reason for that is that I can just tell you honestly, because I've learned this from some of my own teachers in both yoga and in astrology, which is that in many ways, a total beginner is more suited for a real a traditional model of anything. Like if you're going to teach someone from the roots up, tarot or yoga or anything, someone with total beginner's mind is an ideal candidate. At the same time, in our world where it's like everything is DIY, do it yourself. Many people, unfortunately, though they have a lot of information, that they've never been able to start from the ground up with the appropriate form of instruction, and therefore the starting from beginner's mind and starting to look at all of the most basic ingredients of astrology is actually it's really the most advanced way of studying. Like for example, in yoga, you start with very, very basic things like breath work and understanding your body and the rhythms of the body and the currents of the mind and things like that. And many times in yoga studios, the people who need the fundamentals the most are the people who think they're the most advanced. And they actually are the ones who need to be more like beginners. And this is true for myself too. Like when I came to Hellenistic astrology, basically what I found out was that I had a head full of information, but no understanding. And I'm not saying that to be condescending at all. Like that's where we have to stay in that position all the time if we actually want to learn anything in life. Not just in astrology, but in yoga. As my guru says, every day we have to come back to that position of, I don't understand the planets. I don't understand the signs. I don't understand aspects. I don't understand houses or dignities, and start over with them. For ancient astrologers, their textbooks were very basic, but one of the ways that they wrote their textbooks was in a manner that they said foolish people would be unable to plumb the depths of and would not understand. But people who spent consistent time with just these basics would start mining them and discovering all of these esoteric truths that were hidden and embedded in the way that these very simple appearing texts were written. That's the most advanced form of learning from the roots of astrology upward. And most people never get the benefit of doing that. And most people are allergic to doing that because it seems like you'll be going backward. But actually, when you start at the roots and go really deeply into this philosophy, metaphysics, cosmology, beneath the planet science houses, that's when you start realizing, oh my God, this is, first of all, I knew something, but I had no idea how it worked or how it came about. And then it's also very humbling, because as soon as you have a few of those insights, you go like, wow, we're dealing with like some astrological rain men back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, these people were tuned into another planet. They were like, you have to remember that these are people who are downloading, right, in their altered states of consciousness, spherical trigonometry in order to do this stuff. So and this class really just touches the surface of all of that. So it's very humbling. And I think the best place for intermediate students to be, if they've never studied classical astrology, is to be back in beginner's mind, because that's the most advanced place that we can be, and we should be every day, whether we're a teacher or a student.
Yeah. And another question I get all the time is related to this, is people saying, hey, I've already studied astrology for this many years. I already have this knowledge of astrology. Can I begin with year 2? Raphael, I'm about to throw this question back at you in just a minute. So get your perspective on it. But because it's not my experience, I did come in fresh, and I know that you came in from a modern perspective. So I think it'd be really interesting to hear that. But what I tell people is, okay, yes, maybe there are some elements in common between what you know of modern astrology and this Hellenistic astrology course that Acyuta is giving. But it's kind of like somebody who is an expert at Taekwondo who wants to learn Aikido, and is saying, you know what, I already know martial arts. Like, can I just begin with like the advanced course? And I mean, it's different. Yeah, there might be some things that in common. There might be some things that you already know, or some things that come more easily to you because you already have a background in one of those traditions. But being a master at Taekwondo does not mean that you're a master at Aikido and that you can just jump in like at the most advanced level. And so that's the example I gave. Raphael, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's really interesting because it's true. And one of the things that I've found with ancient astrology that's really helped me is the whole idea of whole signs. So that really settled a lot of arguments and debates for me. I was just like, boom, okay, this makes so much more sense. And I'll give an example over that in just a moment. But one of the things, and this is like a really weird example, but stay with me. When a ballet dancer is learning to stand on point, that's the place that they want to get to. In order to get there, your feet, your muscles, your ligaments all need to be strong enough in order to support you, right? So this is what I see this course has done for me with my astrological knowledge. It's given me a much stronger foundation. It's helped me understand the planets in completely different ways. Acyuta, hat off to you, man, seriously. It's really helped me gain a clearer perspective as well on how I see things and how I intuit them. I mean, I've been fairly lucky. You talk about going back to the start, because as a tarot reader, the first thing you do before you see the cards is you clear your mind, right? So I have that ability already from years worth of that practice to just say, right, put that aside, all of your stuff, all of whatever is before, you immerse yourself into what you see. And in that respect, I think I've been quite fortunate. I had astrological knowledge, and when I fused it with this course, I'm like, yeah, I kind of maybe sort of know what I'm doing, which has been really, really exciting. And yeah, in terms of the path forward, especially if you're on a spiritual path, you need somebody that's been through it, that can lead you down that path to say, this is what, right? This is what you need to know. These might be your pitfalls, and these might be the the things that pull you off the path, but if you stay with it, this is what you're going to get from it, which is that deeper understanding. So yeah, for sure.
That was great. Thank you. I have a funny story about this exact topic. When I was getting ready to sign up for your course, for year one at least, I was still working with a couple astrologers, and, not to spill any tea, but one of them that I was working with said, the amount of money that you're going to spend in a year one course that's going to take all this time, you could be already practicing astrology and getting clients if you work with me instead, because we're going to go at your pace, which is much faster because you get things very fast and you already have this gift and da 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 da. And I had to sit with it for a long time because I thought, well, yeah, I do kind of, I kind of get this. And I feel like I could be seeing clients this time next year. And wow, that, that's really appealing. And it comes back to what you said about, a lot of people, we live in such a instant age that, we want to get there and we want to get there fast. And we want to, not maybe be in the trenches for as long as we actually need to be. I think Chris Brennan has an episode about like not practicing or the debate of practicing astrology before your Saturn return. And it felt very similar as I was finishing up my Saturn return, as I was having this conversation with this other astrologer, and they were, really trying to tell me that, this class was going to be too slow, and, it wasn't even going to cover transits, and how are you going to see clients if you can't do that? And I haven't spoken to them in over a year. And if I do ever, if they do ever reach back out to me, I'll say something like, I hate to tell you, but you were completely wrong, because I feel like I want to retake year one so that I can get more information. And, this is the exact pace that you need to go if you really want to understand and connect with these energies. So I think the idea that, if you're advanced already, like I thought I was, or other astrologers were telling me I was, the best place to be is knowing that you know nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I had an astrologer, one of the astrologers that means the most to me. I hosted him for a week-long retreat when I was pretty early in my career. And one night he sat me down. It was like the night before the end of this week-long retreat. And we were sitting there and he said, I said, just offer me some feedback, like, what do I need? Because he saw me teach a bit and stuff like that. And he was a Brit too. So I feel like, I gave him permission to just give it to me. Just the realism, please. Just, so anyway, so he said, you have about 10 more years of growing to be what you think you are right now. That's what he said to me. And, I kind of paused, but he reassured me that doesn't mean you should stop teaching. It doesn't mean you should stop seeing students, or teaching and seeing clients. And I'm not telling you don't have permission to be an astrologer. And specifically what he made clear to me was that he was saying this to me because he saw that I had promise, but that he felt as an older generation astrologer that younger generation astrologers there's a lot of information. There's not a lot of experience. And basically he was just saying, get 10 more years of experience. And for the next 10 years, stay in the attitude that not like you're a fraud, but like you might be a fraud. You know what I mean? Like, just like you might not be as good as you think you are, and just stay there. Don't just be comfortable there. Don't hate yourself. Don't be critical, but just stay in that feeling of like, I haven't arrived anywhere. And that was not 10 years ago yet. You know what I mean? I've still got I've still got 4 more years to go. That was 6 years ago or so. And he also said to me, don't write a book about astrology until you've gotten 10 more years under your belt. He said, you can take that or leave that advice, but don't do it, because you want to be able to speak from the ground of confidence, and confidence can't be manufactured. Some people have confidence, like they have charisma, but confidence in a subject matter rests on experience and nothing else. People can be like, oh, I did it in past lives. To me, it's like BS. it would start over in this lifetime. You know what I mean? Like if you haven't yet had experience for a long time seeing clients, studying astrology, learning from people you like, just sticking with that beginner mindset for a long time, be very careful not to be cocky about it. And the first of all respects to astrologers who have to compete for people's business. I have people contact me all the time saying, why do you think your course is better than someone else's? And I'm always quick to say, well, here's why this might be a better fit for you. Let me make a case. But I'll never trash another astrologer, you know. But I understand that people have to do that. So there's no hard feelings there on my part. But it is the case that when people come to my class and they say, we don't even study transits until year 2. And I say, I promise you, if you stick with this program through year 1, you'll be very glad you didn't. And you will feel 10 times more confident and capable in learning and practicing these things than you did before if you just slow your roll and really, because here's the thing, the I Ching is like this too. Ancient astrology was a cosmology. So imagine that you walk into the Platonic Academy, maybe later in the day, and maybe they were teaching astrology even, we don't know. But let's just say that you walk into the Platonic Academy. Day 1, year 1 would be like the structure of the cosmos. Why are we here? What is real? What are the archetypes? What are the forms? What is the dyad? What is the monad? We would be talking about the basic philosophical concepts of which planets, houses, signs, etc. are a reflection of. And then very, very gradually, you start to learn the interrelationship philosophically. And what that's doing is it's giving you the understanding in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit of what kind of cosmos you inhabit, of how it's structured, at least within the context of this paradigm. And that starts giving you fluency in the actual thing that you're going to end up practicing. That's where the fluency comes from. And unless you build it very slowly and get to know it very slowly on that level first, you're going to rush to saying, how do I use this? Well, if you don't know why you're using it or what it was intended to be used for, you're not going to know how to use it. And so that's why you have to really, really take your time. But of course, this is sometimes a bit of a hard sell, because for people to really buy into this, they have to say, I'm realizing that I have to, at the very least, I have to expose myself to these ancient theories and ideas and consider them, take them in very deeply. And if a person, even if you end up saying, I might go in a slightly different direction, I think that people who take this course are the ones who say, I need to consider this stuff. I need to take my time and slow down and consider it, because I don't want to assume that I know exactly what this is for, how to use it, or what I'm doing. People who have that attitude advance very, very quickly in my course. Delia is a brilliant example. In fact, the reason that I hired her to become my personal assistant and my TA is because she had total beginner's mind and was so eager to learn and not in any hurry to say, okay, quick, just tell me how to read someone's chart. Because only in the I Ching is very similar. In these disciplines in the ancient world, the philosophy and the spiritual transformation of your consciousness vis-a-vis participating in the philosophy as an exercise, that it's like karate, or any other martial art, where the martial art is its own transformative process, whether you're fighting someone or not, you know what I mean? And only secondarily does the expression go outward into, engagement with others and their questions about the world. It's only, later in the history of the I Ching, one of the greatest oracles in the world, that this text is used in an oracular predictive manner. It has at least probably 1,000 years worth of being used purely as a meditative, like scripture, like the Tao Te Ching or the Bible, or it's like that. Well, similarly, ancient astrology was primarily cosmology and philosophy, and then it starts emanating outward into becoming a predictive, like mantic device. So if you take that attitude towards it and almost like think to yourself, I'm walking into a subject matter that is supposed to transform my mind, and that If you want to, for example, people always say, I'm going to read a chart. Well, in ancient astrology, you can't read a chart unless you learn how to read. And for the ancient people, learning how to read, right, meant first and foremost, because they thought language came from the same numinous source as astrology. That's why they actually called it a heavenly form of writing. So you have to kind of say, like, I'm going to learn how to speak a new language. And the later on, I'll learn how to use that language to speak to people's concerns about their karma. But first, I just have to be interested in the language itself. And if people have that mindset, that they learn very, very quickly. But if people have the mindset of get me to the charts, the course feels very long and arduous.
At the same time, Acyuta, I don't want to discourage people. Like someone might be watching this and saying, like, oh, I'm not actually interested in learning like ancient cosmology. I do want to learn how to read a chart. Like, you do get that by the end of the course. Like Laura was saying, the astrologer told her, like, hey, if you study with me, you'll be reading and seeing clients within a year. She is reading and seeing clients like within a year, So the benefit here is that you get both. You do come out like being highly, very capable of reading and interpreting a birth chart, but then you get also all of this stuff. You're getting it from the teacher of the course and 3 people who have already like gone through it. So your outlook at the beginning is different, and then it kind of transforms as you go through the course. So we're all really enthusiastic about it because we've already gone through it. But if this sounds like just like Chinese, well, not Chinese, if this sounds really complicated to you, yeah, it's like Chinese is a really difficult language to learn, just objectively speaking. But if this sounds very don't worry, like you will get that. Just as you progress through the course, things will fall into place.
Yeah, it's the same with any training that you take. I've taken 2-3 yoga teacher trainings, and it's the same. If you want to teach yoga, you yourself need to be doing yoga at least 3 times the amount that you're going to teach it, because you need to know what the poses feel like so you can cue it. Right? You can cue someone in and out. You need to know yogic philosophy before you start to learn the asana, which is really just to sit, right? The whole purpose is to connect and sit. And I think Hellenistic astrology is very much the same. It's to recognize the oneness and the connection and to really feel the archetypal energies of what this complicated system is based around. So you have to be there before you can, interpret. And I think that taking it that way is the same as any good course that you're going to take. If you take a yoga teacher training and it doesn't have yoga philosophy for at least the first half of the course, I would warn against taking it. The same way that, I would warn against taking any astrological course that doesn't go into the depth so that you have the understanding and not just, like I said, a mathematical equation that is really just surface level.
Yeah, and as Laura said earlier, you do develop a reverence and more of a respect for astrology, but that's as you get to know it more and as you work, and really like discover that astrology is so much more than even what you think it is right now before like having studied it.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't mean to make it sound like it's an impossible, arduous thing. But if one has the desire to, if you're bitten by the bug and it's not just, I want to read charts, but it's, where does this come from? What is this magical thing? And that's what's driving it. The course feels like it flies by for people. And I have a lot of students that retake year 1 simply because the experience is so, it's like you get in a trance for a year with astrology. And it doesn't feel arduous for a lot of people. A lot of people to retake my first year course, not because they're not understanding it, but because they want to go deeper into the same basic material, because there's layers and layers that are presented, of course. And then, oftentimes, so the only people that I see finding it like that, where it is a more arduous thing, are typically people who are eager to make money right away. So I would say it's not a good class for someone who's like, I want to make money instantly doing charts for people. you're going to have to probably wait a year. Even towards the end of the class, though, like 7-8 months in, people start reading charts for others in a very basic manner. And I give you ways of doing that too. But people should think to themselves, the benefit that I think of the course in terms of like selling it to people who want to have a professional practice is that, like, if you go through, especially if you go through both my first year and my second year program, and you take it seriously and you do as much of the additional work you can and homework and practice and stuff like that, you're probably going to have a foundation in life for reading for people that is more solid than a vast majority of people who are only studying on their own and trying to piece it together on their own.
Yeah, I will say, if you know nothing about astrology or the course, you look at the syllabus and you might see like, oh, 3 classes for planets and 3 classes for houses. And as Acyuta mentioned earlier, each class is 2 to 3 hours. Like, you look at that and you'll be like, how are you going to fill like 8-9 hours of content? Like, when you actually go through the course, you're like, wow, this is barely enough time. You know, and then with like there's bonus material also that accompanies almost every lesson, at least the theoretical lessons. And there's a supplemental reading bibliography that's also provided in the optional homework. So basically the course is, okay, so this is another question I get a lot. People asking like, what kind of time commitment or energy commitment is this course? And another thing that I like about this course is that you can really go as deep into it as you want to go, or you're able to go right now. So if you're interested in astrology, you do want to commit to a formal course. Maybe, you know, you have like 2 jobs or kids or whatever life commitments. You're fine just following along with the classes like week by week. If you have more time or if you have more energy to devote, you want to go deeper into it, then get into the homework, get into the bonus material, get into the supplemental reading. If you really want to go like as deep in as you can go, or maybe you came in as more of like an intermediate level person, and then you can go into, as again, the bonus material, the bibliography. Like, there is potentially, it's fine for everyone. If you don't have that much time to devote to it, we do recommend 2 to 3 hours between classes to get the most, just like a little bit review to stay like with the course. But you can go as deep into it as you want to go. Plus, you also get to download and keep all of the materials. So even if you don't end up retaking year 1, that's an invaluable resource for you, because it means that you can go back and like review. You'll still have all of that supplementary information, the bibliography, and you have the potential to mine that for your learning for years after you graduate.
Yeah.
There's definitely enough material there where if you're like, I'm just doing this because it's a hobby, you can take it at that level because nothing's required of you. You know, certification is optional. Some people, you know, take that test at the end. Some people don't. Every week there's optional reading, there's optional quiz, there's optional bonus material, and there's a lot of it. There's so much that I don't expect anyone would really get through all of it. Right. But there's enough there so that people can also say, oh, I'm interested in this, but not that, or I want to read more about this, but not that. And you get to keep all that material too. So we have, I'm probably a lot of students in the classes that are hobby students of astrology. They're not necessarily looking to make a career out of it, but they want to be able to read their own chart, which is like having a cosmic GPS in your car. You know, it's like really helpful just to have the ability to read your own chart for your life or those that of your family members or whatever. It's like yoga. If you take some classes and you learn how to have a home practice, okay, well, wherever you go, you always, if you're stressed out, like you can hit the carpet in a hotel room and you have something there for yourself. Astrology is like that. You know, my wife this morning was like, she doesn't track the transits like I do. And she goes, is Mars doing something with Saturn? And I go, yeah, Mars is squaring Saturn right now. She had no idea. And she's like, yeah, I can just totally feel it. It's like my will just feels all frustrated and blocked. I was like, yeah, that's Mars Saturn. She can feel that stuff just by proxy because of the astrology that she's picked up from me over the years. But if you study it like that, it's so handy to be able to, there's apps that we can, you know, there's tons of apps and stuff like that. We show you how to connect with those things, but you can just flip open your app and be like, this is what's going on, and it helps you plan, make decisions, not freak out. I mean, it's very, very helpful for people who are even just interested in having astrology as a hobby.
I think that becomes astrology as self-care also,
Mm-hmm.
which I think if you're taking this course in that mindset, it's amazing for that. Being a second grade teacher at a Title I school and having bone graft surgery during this year, this was not only my passion, but my self-care. It was one of the only forms of yoga that I could physically do. So you can take it as deep or as, nourishing and light as you need. And I think it's totally valuable either way.
Raphael, were you going to say something?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way that you guys have put all of that together. It really spoke to me. And I think definitely noticing it will really help you see it out there in the world. Like, not that I watch the news a lot, but you can see it. And you get to, I don't know, it's weird. Like, this course has really made me think deeper. If anybody is a tarot reader out there, I can assure you this will be perfect for you. It really helped me go even deeper into what I do, which was amazing. And also, what I absolutely loved about it was just because it's simple in terms of, like the whole sign aspect, or just the 7 planets, or the 5 planets and the luminaries. Don't think for a second that, oh, well, it's just that, so I'm not going to get much for it. The depth of knowledge, not only that you have, but was in there as well, was absolutely mind-blowing for me. So that simplicity, you will still find that it's such a rich system, that it's amazing, really.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really great feedback. And I feel, like we have so much more. I'm so excited to collaborate more with you on the overlaps between tarot and astrology, which we are planning to do. So there will be more of that. But that's great advice in terms of, like, if you are a tarot reader and you're looking for something to complement tarot, that this class will do it. I make references, not all the time, but I have enough knowledge of tarot where I throw some in here and there. But I hope to get more of that in there too, as I associate more with Raphael and others. But I think Laura might have accidentally dropped off, so hopefully she can come back in. But maybe the last question that I want to ask, because we're definitely going long now, is just what tips you would give for people who are thinking of taking the program in terms of how they can succeed and make the most out of the program. Anything that you struggled with and learned, and advice that you would have for people studying in this course?
Yeah, I guess, as I said from the beginning, for me personally, I've been lucky because I have that innate ability just to put something aside. But really do, if you can just come to it at least with an open mind and an open heart, I promise you'll get so much out of it. And even if you're not necessarily, quote unquote spiritual, even if it just makes you think at a deeper level about what you're actually doing, about what you're actually reading for people when you're looking at charts, let it do that for you. Like, really just open your mind to doing things in a completely different way. Have fun with it. That's one thing I noticed. Like, we laughed a lot in class, and there were moments where I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. But then it all kind of clicked. And when you get those little light bulb moments and it really starts to come in, you're just like, wow, yeah, I can see that. I can see how it works and how it's touching, my chart or somebody else's. So just be open for it. I think if you get behind on anything, just get back in it as much as you possibly can, and be present for as many of the classes as you possibly can. Obviously, life and the crazy world permitting. But yeah,
that's great advice. Yeah, there's a lot of people who take it remotely who can't participate live. But for those who can, I think the standard advice is, if you can be there live, you should. But for people who don't attend live, I'm also available all the time for questions, and encourage people who can attend live to reach out regularly so that you get a little interaction and you can ask questions as people are able to in the live webinar. Laura, we're kind of going around. You dropped off for a second, but we're going around to the last question that I asked is like, what recommendation or advice or tips would you have for people who are thinking of taking this program in terms of being successful in the program? What challenges have you had and how have you worked through them?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry, my internet dropped. I think the same advice is really to, like you said, be at as many live sessions as you can. But I think even if you can't be, if you're, really far away or totally different time zone, I know for me, sometimes it was very early in California. If you can't be at the live sessions, I think the most important thing is to really be there with your teacher. So even if you're doing the recorded version of a class, really clear your space, clear your mind, take 5, 3, 1 minute to breathe and really center yourself and connect. And this comes from one of, the yogic traditions that I've studied of, the golden chain of teachers. And maybe this is too woo-woo for some of your followers, but for me, this is very poignant. It's very important. I've taught yoga classes and things came out of my mouth that I had no idea that I said. Someone later would say, "Oh my God, that was so meaningful. Thank you for saying that." And I think that I have to give credit to my teachers, my amazing teachers that I've downloaded from, that, live little bits and pieces in me that I can share to others. And I think the same is true for this tradition. So to really be present, whether it's in person or, recorded, to just really be there with Acyuta, because I'm going to toot your horn for you. He has such a deep understanding and connection. It's rare to find a teacher that's this committed to their spiritual practice, that, he spends 2-3 hours every day just doing his work so that he can show up for others. And of course, leading by example. If we all did that, we'd probably be in a lot better place. But I know sometimes we think, well, I don't even have 5 minutes to myself. But if you're taking this course, just set aside that time, because you don't want to miss what you can get from him. It's really special.
Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you, Laura. And that's it's like yoga, astrology was passed down from teacher to student in a manner like similar to the way that shamans and train their apprentices. And if we're being a good teacher, then we're being a good representative of how our teachers taught us and the people that taught us, and being present for receiving that spark, which is not ultimately about me or my teacher or, some person, but is about honoring of the transmission of these sacred ideas. And if we show up for that and are present for that, it's true that's when it really seems to grab hold, when we make a little sacred space for it every time you sit down for class. That's exactly how I think of one of my favorite teachers, Robert Schmidt, who was one of the early translators of all of these Hellenistic texts into English. And when I listen to him speak, I have to sit down, with my headphones, or maybe I go for a walk, but I have to tune everything else out and really be present. And that's when it has the biggest impact, for sure.
All right. Well, my advice, I have tons of advice for you guys. The good news is if you enroll in the course, you'll be hearing from me constantly. Since I'm in the team, my advice is attend the breakout study sessions. No, just kidding.
Yeah, no, you should. Delia is the TA for the class, and she manages tons of questions all the time from people, and then leads breakout tutoring groups in between units. And so, you're looking at someone who you'll be working with regularly, as well as me.
Well, that was kind of a shameless plug, although they are really helpful. Laura and Raphael have been to the sessions that we had in Nightlight 19. No, but my real advice though is have patience with yourself and stick with it. Trust the process, even when it seems confusing, overwhelming, or too much, because there comes a point where it will, and I think all of us have gone through it. There was a point where I was like, I might never be able to read it, where it seems like you might hit a wall. but you push back and things will make sense. This happens because astrology is a system. It's so integrated, so you can't really make complete sense of it until you have a full understanding of all of the parts. And so when you're learning like one of the parts or a few of them, and you don't have all of the pieces yet that you will need to make sense of it all, don't get frustrated. Just stick with it, be patient, be humble, and also don't suffer in silence. Please, if you have a question, also reach out to me, post in the discussion group, write in, Acyuta or I will answer. Just don't walk away with like questions in your head. And there was one more thing. I lost my train of thought.
Well, while you're thinking of it, I'll just add this, like an example of how ancient astrology works. The reason why it can be a little overwhelming until suddenly it all starts clicking. What is an opposition, which is an aspect in astrology? Well, you can't understand what an opposition is until you understand Saturn. You can't understand Saturn until you understand the sun. You can't understand the sun until you understand the difference between the sun and the moon. You can't understand the difference between the sun and the moon until you understand the difference between the primary and secondary motions of the sky. You know what I mean? And that's how it works. It's like that. And it keeps going like that too, until you understand. And then finally you think you've understood Saturn, but you can't understand Saturn until you understand the difference between the relationship between Venus and Saturn, where Saturn is exalted in Libra. So it's like this beautiful mandala where anything you want to understand leads you to having to understand something else. And that keeps going and going and going, and it never stops. Until finally you just start to feel like, rather than struggling, you're floating on your back. You know what I mean? And that transition happens purely by just continuing to show up and be present.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the last thing. It's respect your own process and your own learning style. If you're someone who loves to read the books, read the textbooks. If you're more visual or an auditory learner, watch the videos. If you're more interactive, then make like your own notes or whatever. There's lots of
flashcards and different homework exercises and things like that.
Yeah, just because we provide all of the bonus material to you doesn't mean that you have to get through all of it, or that you have to get through all of it in like the year that you take the course. So yeah, find what works for you in terms of studying. Again, like we can talk about, continue to address this throughout the course. And also don't pay attention, don't compare yourself to others in the group. Don't pay attention to what others are doing unless it's like helpful or, collaborative or something. But as I mentioned, like some people will be more beginner, some people will be more advanced, some people will, be doing it more as a hobby. Some people will go like more into it. Don't compare yourself. It's you and your learning process.
And we're there to help you become whoever you're hoping, or whatever you're hoping to develop in relationship to the content. That's what we're there to support you with. Well, last question for you guys before we close. What are you doing with astrology right now? Or are you using it with other people at all? Or where do you see yourself going with that? And no pressure though. There's no expect. If you're like, I don't know, that's fine too.
Astrology. Oh yeah, go ahead, Laura.
I just want to add to what you just all finished saying, that also if there's a Delia in your year one class, don't compare yourselves to her because it's unbelievable, and there's a reason for it, but be inspired by them instead. That's all.
The Delias in your class just want to help out. So,
I loved having you in class. I am still mind blown that you were brand new to astrology. So that's what I mean by that. Yeah.
Delia is a jack of all trades. Delia is an attorney, and Delia has turned into masterful, astrologer, philosopher, astrological philosopher. Very quick. I was like, it was mind blowing to see how quickly she picked up on it. But it also happened, I felt very synchronistically, because I'd been praying in my practice, every single day for essentially a year and a half, maybe two, that I would find just one helper because I was so overwhelmed. So I just was looking for one helper, and yeah, Delia showed up in one of my classes, and I was like, wow, this is like a whiz kid. And then she ended up reaching out saying, hey, if you ever need any help. And I was like, okay, message received. So I had just earned enough through last year's Kickstarter, which you all helped me with, to hire someone to help me this year. So that was the answer to prayers. You guys will really benefit from having Delia as your wingman in this experience. Wing woman, I should say.
I will second that. From diagrams to information to always being on hand to kind of shoot questions at, you've both been invaluable. So I am currently formulating a big project that I'm going to put on my channel at the end of this year for my YouTube channel, which I never would have been able to in a million years put together unless I'd taken this course. You really, really helped me understand astrology, not only from a deeper perspective, but also how I can use it more in what I do. And it's actually given me a little bit more confidence because, you know, like with my tarot stuff, I was like, yeah, I know what I'm doing there. But with astrology, I'm like, ugh, you know, very, a bit nervous with it. But this has given me a lot more confidence for it, for sure.
And Raphael, where can people find, like, tell us just where that we can find your YouTube channel and what you do.
Oh, okay. So my channel is called Radiant Reality. I am a tarot reader, so I will do weekly and monthly tarot readings for the signs. But as always, I'd always been tapping into the energy of the sign rather than, you know, trying to talk about parts of it that you can't really reach for a general reading. And sometimes I'll talk about the transits. I try to bring that in to my readings, and it's actually insane. I think the course has something to do with that. I'm literally seeing them play out in the readings that I do, and it's been amazing to see unfold.
It's really cool. So it would be Radiant Reality?
Yeah, it's spelled Reydiant, because my surname is Ray. So
got it. Yeah, check it out. It's he's got a big, awesome, successful YouTube channel. I'm excited to also collaborate with Raphael and bring a little bit more tarot over to my channel as well. Have him come guest teach and talk to us about tarot, which occasionally I do over the years. Like it seems like every other year I end up diving back into the tarot pool a little bit and trying to bring in fresh voices and stuff like that. And it really helps me because I think that any way in which you can associate the tarot symbols with astrology and vice versa, it's very helpful when describing things to people. Like 9 times out of 10, if I'm talking to a client who doesn't know about astrology, but they know about tarot, and I can say, it's like this card, they'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. So anyway, I'm really excited for more collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. That really helped me as well with my tarot-based mind. When you gave, and very good examples, by the way. I have to say, like a lot of the ones that you said for cards and stuff were spot on. So yeah,
good. That's good validation for me. It's definitely not my area of expertise as well. So, but yeah, Laura, what are you doing with astrology now, or what do you see yourself doing with it in the future?
So like I said, I have always looked at people's charts and had conversations with friends, especially. Now I'm considering myself in this like the slingshot stage where I'm really pulling way back before I shoot forward again. So a lot of that is on pause because I'm in year 2 and horary right now, which is just so fascinating. Also, I know we're not talking about that today, but those courses are also amazing. I think that, you know, I have an astrology business that I've had for a little bit of time now. That's Amrit Astrology, which is Amrit Kaur is my spiritual name. And it means the nectar of the gods. And to me, it just was so fitting because this astrological practice has really been like my life force, and it's connected me back to something larger. And it's really given me a lot of sweetness. like nectar. So there you have it. So eventually you can find me at amritastrology.com. But in the meantime, it's given me, more confidence in the thing that I am an expert in, which is teaching little ones and mindfulness. So I've been in the education field for over 10 years now, and I finally feel like I'm at a place where I can, I have valued myself more than I used to, and I'm not willing to, be counterproductive to that. So I'm doing a lot of mindfulness for kids. So the other place is it's not astrology, but I feel astrology has given me the tools to succeed with it and to know myself a little bit better and what I'm good at. So that one's Miss Mindful Minute if you have little ones and you're looking for some read alouds or mindfulness videos.
That's cool. So where can people find that?
That's on YouTube or on Facebook. I don't have a website for it, but it's Miss Mindful Minute.
That's cool. That's really awesome. I know that we are stoked to get our girls watching those, and because I told my wife about that the other day.
Nice.
Then the astrology website is just so that people can eventually look it up. What is it? How is it spelled?
I wonder if I can just write it.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher, so I always have Post-it notes nearby.
Uh-huh.
Can you see
Amrit. Yeah, there it is.
Amrit means nectar.
Yeah.
Of the gut. So amritastrology.com. Very relatively simple, I thought, but maybe not.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Laura. Delia, did you want to add anything before we close?
Yes. What am I doing with astrology? Okay. Well, it has become my life pretty much, basically. I quit my previous job in March and started working full-time with Acyuta. So that's what I'm doing. I'm here for all of you guys. And basically, I see my role as helping and facilitating Acyuta and helping and, facilitating the course and everything for all of you as much as I can in anything that I'm able to. People know that I'll help out with like tech issues, computer program recommendations, just whatever you all may need. And I'm just very happy and grateful to be where I am.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, Delia also frequently offers me advice in terms of how to make what I'm teaching more accessible to people. She's reworked, for example, she has design background. She's helped rework the slides to a lot of my presentations, making them look a lot better. I'm about like my skill set in terms of making PowerPoints is about like my daughter's skill set when it comes to drawing a horse, which is like good. Like I'm like, hey, I like that horse, but yeah, I'm not sure it stands up. Anyway, I'm just playing. But thank you all for being here today. Thank you all for helping me to promote the upcoming course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. I think that if you were to take this advice that we've given today and apply it to any serious course in ancient astrology, whether you're studying in my class or there's other great programs out there too. Check out Demetra George. She's one of my favorite teachers. Check out Chris Brennan and his astrology podcast and his course. There's a lot of good teachers out there, a lot of good material out there. And hopefully this has given you a way of thinking about your astrological education journey, whether it's in my course or wherever you go, and knowing that there's people like you who have been through it. You have hopefully the sense that there's resources out there in general too, which sometimes can just feel overwhelming. Like, is there anybody out there? But at any rate, that's what we've got for today. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Check it out on my website, nightlightastrology.com. Feel free to email info@nightlightastrology.com, and we will see you all later. Thanks to Laura, Raphael, and Delia for being here today. Thanks, guys. Bye.